Good morning. It is still morning for the next 13 minutes. This is the sermon for the third Sunday in Lent in 2001. And, excuse me, it's actually quite interesting. Sometimes these readings can be a bit obscure during Lent. As this one on the surface might seem, it's like, how do these things have to do with anything or with each other? But they actually do. So why don't we get started with it? If you got a chance to look at the handout for the Isaiah Project sent out earlier this week, I posed the idea that the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, isn't a list of do's and don'ts. In the epistle, it's the first epistle to the church in Corinth, St. Paul makes the comment about the law, the Torah, and he says, "For Jews demand signs and Greeks desire wisdom, but we proclaim Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For God's foolishness is wiser than human wisdom, and God's weakness is stronger than human strength." To me, all this points to the idea that the theme this week is about the wisdom of God, who theologically is the Logos, the incarnate one. This is my third cup. It's one of those mornings. So instead of the Decalogue being a list of forbidden fruit, in truth, it's a guide for attaining wisdom. It's not a matter of following rules in order to avoid punishment and sidestep the wrath of God, since wrath is not part of the divine economy to begin with. Rather, the commandments exist as the underpinning of the entire universe, or at least the essence behind them does. If one wants to live a life that is fulfilled, one attains the wisdom that it takes to get there. If one makes the choice to live otherwise, then there are consequences to that. It's not divine wrath, it's human choice, either towards wisdom or towards illusion. Lent calls us to examine the illusions in which we live, to dispel them and come back to reality, the reality of God, of Christ, of the gospel. I don't have to tell you that none of this is a day at the beach. It is hard work. Resisting the instincts of our humanity is never an easy task, but the commandments give us a framework from which to dispel our illusions and return to the truth. So the way I'm going to do this is to present the commandment as is, and then glean the wisdom that is contained in it. Since I'm just human, my gleaning will be incomplete, but hopefully at least headed in the right direction. You may glean other wisdom, and together we can get a clearer picture of the wisdom to which God is calling us, something on which we can reflect tomorrow at Mass. So instead of me babbling on, let's get started. So the beginning of Exodus 20 begins, "God spoke to Moses and said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me." So what I hear God saying here is, I'm the only source of all things, source with a capital S. Only through me will you find security, peace, and true fulfillment. Commandment 2. You shall not make yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water beneath under you. You shall not bow down to them nor worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for iniquity of parents, to the third and fourth generation for those who reject me, but but showing steadfast love to the thousandth generation of those who love and keep my commandments. Now, as I mentioned earlier, God is not a wrathful entity nor a punisher. But what he has to say here, what Moses is putting into the mouth of God, which I think is pretty accurate, he says that forgetting number one, which is I am the Lord your God, you shall have no other gods before me, is lethal. Putting your trust in the created order is a one-way ticket down the rabbit hole, because these things have no true life-giving power at all. If you follow the rabbit down the hole, the consequence is that those who come after you will also follow your example, and you'll be responsible for leading them down that rabbit hole. Instead, observe number one to the fullest extent that you can, remembering that your example to those who come after you is of absolute importance. God says, through you, they will find me. The third commandment, you shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Oh, this is one of those because it gets really done. God seems to be saying, when you forget the first commandment, you will do all sorts of heinous and hideous things, but you'll also claim that you're doing them in my name because you have become blind as to whom I am. Don't do that. You're misrepresenting who and what I am. The fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your town. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. Now this is one of those that one could get legalistic about very easily, and some sects of Christianity have. They only worship on Saturday or whatever they're doing. But I think that's a real superficial interpretation of this commandment. I think what actually is being said is that self-care is essential because no one else is going to take care of you. Learn to love and respect yourself as God respects us and loves us. And then we'll learn how to love and respect everyone else, and in so doing, become the conduit of God. The fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, oh, no kidding. You look at the kids today and you listen to people talk about their parents, how they ruined their lives and all this other kind of stuff. And then I was realizing, this probably has been going on since, humans were living in caves. So what I think is being said here is, remember that your parents and your elders aren't perfect. Don't blame them for how your life turned out. In most cases, they did the best they could. And though they were not perfect, through the years they have hopefully grown in with the wisdom of the world and in wisdom and knowledge of me, says God. Listen to them. Be humble. Shut up and respect what they have to say. This doesn't mean that your own ideas are not important. However, take what they have to say into consideration. They did the same thing to their parents and elders back to thousands of generations. The sixth commandment, respect all life, both human and animal. and creation for that matter. Don't kill things just for fun or because you're angry. If you must kill, as in for food or other necessary though tragic reasons, show respect for the dead and give thanks for their sacrifice. The seventh commandment. My commentary is in some ways kind of like, not honoring your father and your mother, because this one seems to be rather popular, although it has been throughout history. That's why there's a commandment about it. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Yes, this is about marriage, but it's much more profound than just marriage. It says, honor your relationships, be honest with each other. Remember that love is not just an emotion, but more importantly, it's a choice that you make. And if you have made a commitment to that choice, then honor that commitment. And remember that relations as well as humans are fragile and a really tricky business. Do the best you can, and when you mess up, ask for forgiveness and give it when someone messes up against you. The eighth commandment. Thou shalt not steal. The truth is that nobody really owns anything. We all have access to things to assist us in getting through life, and so do other people. They, for the most part, need what they have, and taking it without permission might just lead to very serious negative consequences for them. And don't take what is theirs, especially through violence. And don't be greedy or stingy. Remember, it's not yours in the first place. The ninth commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Now, I'm going to avoid the commentary because it kind of is what the other ones were. But I think what it is saying is be genuine and a person of integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. Don't tell lies that in turn gets someone else in trouble. This act does not respect their human dignity, and it damages yours. And the last commandment, number 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Interesting, it says you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, but it doesn't say anything about the wife coveting the neighbor's husband. Okay, I guess we have to read that in. But I think what it's saying here is be satisfied with your lot in life. Doesn't mean be complacent. Doesn't mean endure abuse. It means be satisfied with your lot in life. And if you can improve it, do so. But not at the expense of somebody else. Don't use people for your own purposes, because that is abuse. And kind of relates on a spiritual level to thou shalt not murder. Instead, help each other so that together you can find fulfilling and purposeful lives. There's a break here between the commandments and the rest of the sermon, so I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Believe it or not, this all has something to do with the gospel lesson appointed for the third Sunday in Lent. Jesus promises humanity the resurrection, both his and ours. And as you know, the resurrection for us starts on this plane, in this life, before death occurs. The resurrection isn't just a nice theological concept. It's practical. It's not just ideas or good intentions. It's wisdom put into practice, into action. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says that he has not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. And what he does is he gives a new twist to the Jewish law, to the Torah, by removing it from legalistic interpretations to a compassionate interpretation, which opens the commandment to a whole new dimension. God's ideal for us, as the Gospel of John says, is that we might have life and have it in abundance. This means everybody, not just Christians or people who look like us. This means the entire human race, and probably the rest of creation too. The outcome of living the commandments is that the whole of humanity attains the wisdom of God, which is pure, unadulterated compassion and love. When we've begun this process, life takes on new meaning. We are no longer moral people because we have to be. It's because we can't do anything else. It's what we want to do. It is our greatest desire. Rabbi Hillel, who was, of course, a Jewish rabbi, lived about 100 years after Jesus, and you've heard me talk about this before. One day, one of his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, what is the meaning of the Torah?" The good rabbi responded, "Well, it's pretty simple. Love God, love your neighbor. The rest of it, it's commentary." And Rabbi Hillel was absolutely right. The way to wisdom and the meaning of the commandments isn't by following rules and regulations just for the sake of following rules and regulations. So what? It's all about love and compassion. And God was and is that compassion and love, so much so that God took on human flesh and lived a human life and suffered as we do and died as do all things. But one thing endured and endures to this very day. The love of God made known to us in the Logos, the wisdom of God, that risen one whom we know as Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Now, let's see if I can. Oh, the joys of technology. Yay! Anyway, the links for Zoom Mass will be coming on later in the day. They won't be with the sermon this week. So you'll be getting 2 emails today, one with the sermon, one with the links for Zoom Mass, and then we'll meet tomorrow to celebrate the Eucharist and have a lovely day together. In the process, it was sunny out when I started the sermon. Now it's gray, which might explain why Humpy is on the couch looking very disgruntled. Children. Anyway, hope you all have a great day. Enjoy the sun if indeed it comes out. If it doesn't, curl up in front of the fire with a good book, a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of wine. And we will see you all tomorrow at Zoom Mass at 10:30 as usual. So blessings to you all. Have a great day. Bye.